AI is a very critical business function. Once you get going with it, it becomes critical that you have chat interfaces available to your employees, that people are able to easily look up data and get insight. That becomes mission critical in many ways.
When you really are serious about using AI, and I think people are, there's some early decisions that can kind of make or break the success of the overall project.
But I genuinely think that, we're in this situation where the newspapers are asking, is this a new era, right? Industrial revolution, AI revolution, those kind of things. And that's really about moving into productivity, the productivity phase with AI. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in technology. And I got to participate to some extent in sort of the first round of AI with deep learning back in 2016, 2017. But the adoption and the actual move, as you were saying, into production and broad scale use is at an entirely different scale this time around.
Hybrid by design, navigating enterprise flexibility and industry-specific cloud solutions in the era of AI. Welcome to Hillery Hunter, CTO and General Manager of Innovation at IBM. I'm Jocelyn Houle, your host at BetterTech. Welcome to the podcast, Hillery.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to talk to you today.
Hillery, you have a rich background in technology and innovation at IBM. Maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about your path and how it's shaped your current role as CTO and general manager.
Sure. My journey at IBM has been really interesting because I started in our research division. Our research division has a couple thousand PhDs globally. It's a really exciting place. And so after I completed grad school, I joined this space of all this innovation and different projects and things like that. And I gradually worked on a number of different areas. I started in an area kind of close to silicon and semiconductor technology, but I was sort of coming from a processor design background and working up the stack, so to say. From there, I began working on memory technology, and memory technology became actually part of a conversation around accelerators, GPUs back in 2016 for me. And as we were trying to figure out what to do with accelerators, well, you actually do AI with accelerators. And now that's something we all take for granted, but at the time, it wasn't necessarily a given that was going to be the killer application. And so I wandered into AI all the way back in kind of that 2016 timeframe with a team of folks that were working on that first generation of deep learning. And where do you do AI computation? You do it in the cloud. And so I ended up working in the cloud business unit as their CTO. And then about a year and a half ago, I was asked to take on this role in our infrastructure unit across all of our hardware and cloud products. And so it's just been really exciting how all the different pieces of my background in research and then in our development business units are coming together, because right now, two keywords for us are hybrid cloud and AI, and having gotten to work in different aspects of those spaces over time and in different business units within IBM has been really exciting and helped me just continually learn and get involved in new and exciting technologies.
I love hearing that. IBM Research is a storied entity in the tech world, and coming out of that background, you are perfectly positioned to be a leader in this integration of Gen AI and industry in particular. But before we talk more about AI, because everybody's talking about AI, and of course we will as well, I wanted to just kind of roll back for a second, because IBM has been at the forefront of helping clients integrate AI. Can you discuss the role of infrastructure? You mentioned cloud, you mentioned working on the mainframe side and IBM Research. Help us understand what's the difference between cloud and mainframe, and then help us understand how this strategy ties into AI.
Yeah, I'm glad we're defining these things, because we throw around terms like cloud and hybrid cloud and mainframes and stuff like that. And I think understanding the differences can be helpful to a conversation about AI. The way that I like to think about it is cloud is definitely a place. In some cases, people think of these big warehouse scale computers. They think about where your iPhone backs its data up to, and that's a place. It's a particular cloud and a location. Cloud is also a set of technologies that help you work usually on distributed computing systems with agility and create content quickly and manage environments in a consistent way. And on-premises IT can be a private cloud environment that a bunch of different people are using in that sort of agile manner, but it can also be what we call scale up or tightly integrated systems that can run lots of workload all at once. And those scale up and tightly integrated systems are systems like IBM's Power or our Z mainframe business, and they enable people to pack in a lot of work, and it runs at very low latency. So when you process a credit card transaction, for example, it usually runs through MainFrame because it's a system that can have all of your data and your history and information. It can handle lots and lots of different requests and things all at one time. And so it just serves a little bit different function in the overall IT landscape.
Okay, that's really helpful. And, so what I'm hearing is that this hybrid cloud environment, for massive workloads and different types of workloads really offers greater flexibility and scalability. From your perspective, what are the key advantages of this hybrid approach for enterprises? Wouldn't it be easier to pick one?
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting that you phrased the question that way because there's a little bit of a danger. Hybrid cloud shouldn't be viewed, though it sometimes ends up being, as just a collection of different cloud and IT environments. When it's that, I have a colleague that coined the term Franken clouds, or I tend to call it random acts of cloud usage, right? Where different workloads and adoption of different technologies result in this heterogeneous state. And that's not really hybrid. That's heterogeneous. And that can increase your management costs. It can make your applications less efficient. Your data is all over the place in silos. Hybrid cloud really refers to having a consistent platform and set of technologies that span from the on-premises IT environment and private cloud into public cloud and maybe all the way out to the edge. And you can make intentional and sort of by design choose to use the same technology, the same management infrastructure, the same observability, the same cost management, the same Kubernetes and container platform for running applications in similar ways. When you do that and you choose to have similarity across that full spectrum of where IT is, you can get to a lot of efficiency. And that's what we call hybrid by design or intentional architecture of hybrid cloud.
So I like that notion of an intentional architecture of hybrid cloud that fits over the whole organization in a strategic way. That makes a lot of sense. I really wanted to ask you about, when you're thinking about a cloud strategy as a overall business strategy, a hybrid strategy as a business strategy. I'm so excited to ask you the next question when I saw it in the list, because in your previous role as general manager of industry clouds and CTO of IBM Cloud, you led the development of these industry contextualized cloud offerings. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, and specifically, how do they cater to specific industry needs? I've always kind of wondered about this. When IBM announced that they were doing this, I was watching and thinking, what is the real difference in the infrastructure strategy for that?
Yeah, a lot of times when people traditionally have had on-premises IT or used a mainframe, they're using it for the security value proposition. They know things are going to be secure there. They know they can protect it. There's a lot of encryption support, all these other kind of things. When you then step out of an on-premises environment that kind of feels safe and you're talking about using a public cloud, there's a whole bunch of considerations around resiliency, security, compliance, the total cost of ownership, the performance that you have to start to take into account. And as you were working on things like Cloud for Financial Services, what we were really working to do was to contextualize the use of a public cloud to the requirements of a regulated client, a regulated enterprise. And when a bank is stewarding our personal consumer financial information, we want it to be making very clear choices about security and making sure that things are kept safe, even when they are in a public cloud. And so being able to intersect that set of regulatory concerns, that set of consumer concerns, just good stewardship of banks or insurance companies or other companies dealing with financial information, it does require, and what we built was a set of security and compliance services and capabilities and automation and other things like that to enable a cloud to be used in a very, very secure way. And so you can use cloud with confidence is maybe a good phrase and a good way to think about it. And as we talk about AI, how this has unfolded has been really interesting because those core value propositions are really cross-industry enterprise value propositions. So for us, this conversation about cloud use is really becoming one about cloud for enterprise because AI is a very critical business function once you get going with it. It becomes critical that you have chat interfaces available to your employees, that people are able to easily look up data and get insight. That becomes mission critical in many ways. And so you're going to want to make sure that it's on a cloud environment that's resilient and stable. And you're going to be putting your enterprise data in and out of that AI. And you want to make sure that that enterprise data is going to be protected. So all of that work is very much also evolving forward and impacting many, many more industries because they're just good, solid enterprise design practices. And they're becoming that much more important as people are working through issues of data criticality and application criticality in adoption of AI.
Yeah, we're hearing this more and more, right? That the problems we had yesterday of cloud data and mainframe data streaming, well, those problems are now kind of 10x, 100x as you get into the world of AI, and it's happening, right? I love that you described that intersection between the hybrid world and how the mainframe is taking maybe a ledger or doing credit card transactions. Can you walk us through an architecture kind of left to right of like, okay, I've got my mainframe and it's taking all these credit card swipes, and then maybe it's flowing into some other part of the system that's like an analytical part of the system. I don't have visibility, let's say, as an executive leader. Like, what would be some of the things architecturally you would suggest?
Yeah, AI really at its heart is a hybrid conversation, and you outlined some of the different pieces of it. You may want to think about kind of what the stages of AI are and then where those need to live. And to kind of break it down a little bit that way, you create AI in many cases, or you customize AI that you have adopted. And that is based on usually an offline analysis of a copy of data that you've gotten out of enterprise systems. Or it could be based on public information about consumer behavior and trends or things in the market or purchasing behavior, depending on your industry. So there's usually a process of really exploring data in order to figure out exactly what is the insight, exactly what is the capability that we can create. And that's often a pretty compute intensive offline process. Today, it's very often performed in a cloud. And so you're going to need to pick a cloud and pick a cloud environment where the resiliency, the security, the compliance, the trustability of that environment matches with the quality of data that you're wanting to put there to kind of create the initial stages of an AI capability. Once you have an AI capability, you've either picked it or you've created it, you're going to want to deploy it. And by deploying it, it needs to be close to the data that it's going to be used for. And so we have many clients that are actually deploying AI on the mainframe itself, because as consumers, again, we want to know that intensive and accurate fraud detection is happening. For example, when we're doing financial transactions of various types, doing that in transaction can enable it to happen at very, very low latency and without as much sampling of the data. It can happen inline and online, and that can enable a much, much better outcome for something like fraud detection. If, on the other hand, your AI is something that needs to interface with a consumer, maybe you're in a retail business and that AI is something where you're wanting to offer customized offers to someone that gone into a different sequence of stores in a mall or something like that, that AI maybe should be on location. That AI maybe should be much closer to the consumer and deployed out there at the edge somehow. Or maybe it's a kiosk that they're interacting with to find out different information in an air. And so in that case, the AI needs to be out there at the edge close to the consumer. So being able to choose an AI platform, and this is very much our focus at IBM, but having an AI platform that isn't just in one location, but that can reside across the hybrid cloud landscape can enable a much, much better outcome, because the latency can be as low as possible. The cost of computing is as low as possible. You don't have everything flying around all over the place. And from that perspective, picking up an AI platform is just as important of an IT decision right now as picking an intentional hybrid cloud strategy.
Yeah. Infrastructure and hardware is back.
So, it is.
Maybe
latency matters, data location matters, how it's all orchestrated really matters. It's all that.
Dive into that a little bit, actually, because I think it's such an important, right now what I hear the most is people are trying to get their AI experiments into production. And so these questions are what I think of as like one-way doors. Once you make this decision, it's super hard to come back in, right? So just wanted to, for the audience, very quickly, when you say low latency, what do you mean in kind of business terms, and why does it matter?
Yeah, latency really is a core consideration when you're thinking about building an application. Let's just go to you and I as consumers, right? If we're interacting with a chatbot in a customer service kind of situation, right? A retailer that we've ordered from or something like that, the latency expectation often really matches pretty well with a cloud-based deployment or an on-premises IT deployment, because as humans compared to computers, we're actually relatively slow. We have to type things in. And we're okay if the chatbot, takes a fairly perceptible amount of time to sort of think and respond, so to say, conceptually. And so when there's a human, interaction happening, there's lots and lots of users sending in responses. And so you want it to be somewhere that can flex and scale and expand and contract depending on people are awake or sleeping during different times of the day. And so when you say, okay, I have something that doesn't have to be lightning fast, but it needs to scale over the course of the day, that's a great kind of a characteristic for a cloud deployment. Elasticity, computer usage goes up and down, etc. And the cloud can be a little ways away from the user, and still things travel pretty quickly, and the latency is satisfied. When we're talking about something that's kind of more real-time decision making, something back to my example around credit cards, you have a single environment where a whole bunch of credit card information is coming at it in a consolidated way, and those things happen on a global scale, on a national scale, et cetera, and they're happening much, much faster than you and I type at a consumer chatbot. And so in that situation, the latencies are just on an entirely different scale, and you're going to want the AI to be deployed in the same application environment, in the same infrastructure as where the online processing is happening. So, it's sort of human in the loop, human not in the loop. That's kind of one, barrier that changes things. You also want to be thinking about scale, volume, elasticity, and those will help you think through then what the right way and the right places to deploy the AI are.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. So we're kind of already leaning into this, but, as an IBM fellow and a member of the IBM Academy of Technology, right? You're really a leader in this field. And I would just be curious to know, as you're looking across the whole landscape, what emerging technologies or trends are you currently most excited about? And how would you see that playing into enterprise solutions?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this transition from POCs that you mentioned. Everyone's sort of trying with AI, the transition from experimentation into actual productization and scale and production use of AI. It's maybe an obvious answer given where this conversation has been going, but I genuinely think that, we're in this situation where the newspapers are asking, is this a new era, right? Industrial revolution, AI revolution, those kind of things. And that's really about moving into productivity, the productivity phase with AI. And I love working with clients. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. And, when we're able to, work with, for example, University of Queensland, and they're getting 74% speed up in their medical research and other AI and analytics work because we put the right infrastructure around it and enabled them to go at greater scale across their community. Or other clients that we're working with in the medical field or financial services or across these different industries, seeing them actually able to make a difference in outcomes, right? One of the hospitals that we worked with deploying AI on our power systems has gone from a 3-day cycle on providing diagnoses to their clients to basically overnight by using built-in AI acceleration infrastructure. And that kind of actual deployment and move to production, it makes a difference. It makes an actual difference in people's lives, right? So, what I'm really excited about is seeing these situations where we're actually working with clients that are making infrastructure decisions, making hybrid cloud decisions, but are moving then into production because of those decisions and that intentionality, and being able to make real outcomes for their consumers, for their businesses, for their patients, those kind of things. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in technology. And I got to participate to some extent in sort of the first round of AI with deep learning back in 2016, 2017. But the adoption and the actual move, as you were saying, into production and broad scale use is at an entirely different scale this time around.
Yeah, interesting. I think one of the themes I'm picking up on this conversation is, unlike SaaS environment, where you just stand something up and see how you sort of co-design with the customer, when you really are serious about using AI, and I think people are, there's some early decisions that can kind of make or break the success of the overall project. And those early decisions have to do with infrastructure, the location of the data relative to the hybrid element of that infrastructure. There's another category of concerns that I think need to be addressed, or I'm hearing from customers need to be addressed up front, and that's really around data privacy and security. Similarly, you sort of have to have some guardrails in place early rather than trying to claw it back. What are your thoughts on this, and what are you hearing from customers?
Absolutely. I love your summary there on kind of the strategic decisions and kind of that awareness that they can have downstream impacts. But there are a lot of projects that get stalled because the privacy and the security and what I would call overall the AI governance hasn't been worked through institutionally. There are absolutely answers to these questions though, right? So we're working with many of our clients to establish risk methodology around AI, to establish security policies around AI, and to establish tooling. We have something called AI governance platform, or what's the next step governance, but it leverages, to loop us all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, it leverages technologies that are amazing that were developed by IBM Research, including things that we call fact sheets, or what I like to describe as sort of think of it as the nutrition label for the AI. In the sense of, we expect the FDA provides guidance that our food products are labeled with what's in them and, what's the caloric value, so to say. And you can think of that, then there's an analogy, what data was used, where did this AI come from, what is its model going to be doing? And so enabling organizations to be able to explain internally and explain to their consumers what the AI is and how it will behave and how it's being used, enabling organizations to track drift or any changes, to track security threats against their AI, all that kind of stuff. You can use a single platform to do all of those things. And these are really, really critical to deploying trusted AI, trustable AI, and to ensuring that everyone is comfortable that data privacy policies, regulations, and just general consumer sentiment and concerns can all be addressed and monitored, and so that you really can get to a yes in deploying AI successfully and scaling it.
Interesting. One of the things that's just dawning on me, maybe you can confirm it or deny it, a lot of times you've got different constituencies in these very large organizations. You've got your sort of risk and privacy, you've got cyber, you've got, IT and infrastructure. Have you found infrastructure may be a good topic to kind of bring these groups together?
Absolutely, right. Infrastructure can help be at the heart of this. And I've seen in a couple of clients that they have recognized this, and they really bring together this AI and AI security and cloud conversation as a team effort. When you bring infrastructure to the table, you're able to very quickly address the data and the data policy, who has access to it, how do we govern it, do we know that it's secure, do we know where it is, do we know where there are copies of it, and kind of make those decisions that I think are at the heart of a lot of what then, when not governed and cataloged and other things like that, they can become concerns later on. And so bringing the infrastructure team to the plate is super important in this conversation. It's the base of what you can kind of think of as a pyramid in thinking through risk and security and policy around AI. After the infrastructure security is the data. Then you also want to be thinking through the models themselves and the AI choices that you're making and how they're deployed. So you can really think of infrastructure as the base of ensuring, like it is with most security topics, of ensuring that everyone can be comfortable that it's known and managed well.
All right. Well, if you are an AI champion in a large organization, you heard it here. This is a way to bring everybody to the table. And influence for what you want to do. At very large organizations, this theme keeps coming up. We just mentioned it, of coming out of a test into production. Big companies have a lot of big ideas that they want to do. From an implementation standpoint, what have you seen as like a best practice for moving to a deliberate hybrid approach?
Yeah, I think there are a number of different pieces that need to come together to be most successful. As I mentioned just a second ago, I strongly encourage customers to think of this transformation as not being a single person's job. You have to have a leader and a champion. This is a super important role. But when it's a little bit more of a joint responsibility across infrastructure, data, and AI, and the applications and line of business users, you can define a much better value proposition that's more holistic. So one of my colleagues in consulting talks about value stream generation. So really taking a step back as a group and saying, what is the net outcome? What's the benefit that we're looking to accomplish? And if everyone understands that business value and it's well grounded in that, it's not just adopting AI. You actually name the project by its outcome, right? It's realizing, 20% faster shipping times. It is realizing 40% better consumer experience. Whatever your sort of important metric is, then you sort of have a purpose, for the whole endeavor and for the transformation that needs to happen. If you kind of then break down at the next layer to think having plans that are clear for for AI risk and governance and the tooling that you're going to use to accomplish that. Underneath that, you're going to make some core decisions. What AI models are you going to use? Do you trust those AI models? Are you using a vendor that's clear about the accountability, where the data came from, and how hate use and profanity and other things are being scrubbed out, and the sort of the quality and characteristics and trustability of that AI? And then from an infrastructure perspective, then those at the table from the infrastructure side are really at the core of being able to then deliver the AI in the right place at the right time with the right cost profile. And so if you kind of work down that stack, you have everyone working on their piece together, though, in order to accomplish that high level business value for a particular application. And that's magic then. That really enables you on kind of a product by product basis within an enterprise to achieve a better outcome together by that collaboration across the stack.
That was really helpful and insightful commentary. You mentioned trusted AI. I just wanted to quickly dive into that. Because, I feel like in AI, everyone's like, yeah. There's bias. Yeah. There's hallucination. But we really do need to address it. What is IBM doing? What are your customers thinking about and truly trusting the models?
Yeah, trust is a super important conversation for us because we have longstanding platforms like the MainFrame that we were talking about earlier that are used for business critical data and things that are really important to us as consumers. And so from a platform perspective, then carrying that value proposition up into the cloud that's going to be used for AI as well. Like we were talking about earlier, risk and compliance and security and controls and trust of that base cloud environment where the data and the AI are going to reside needs to be a part of the conversation as well. And then as you move up the stack, it has to do with choosing models that you trust. We provide transparency in the data that we're using. We provide transparency in how we're doing hate, abuse, and profanity scrubbing. We provide then a platform to enable bias to be monitored and to ensure that there isn't drift in the end capabilities that are provided to the consumer or the line of business. So we're really trying to address this, I would say, end to end, because it's a cross-stack conversation. You can monitor for bias. You can get into the details of your AI models and get to a place where you trust them. And you can ensure that you're picking infrastructure environments that have the right compliance and security and controls so that your data is going to be protected down at that bits and bytes level. And I think that's something exciting about our value proposition is that in each piece of that conversation, we can ensure that an enterprise can have really good answers so that there's much less sort of mystery in the whole thing. AI is hard enough. You don't need to be worrying about whether something is in place to help you know if drift happened. You should have a tool in place to know if drift happened, and therefore just remove the mystery.
What do you mean by drift?
Yeah, drift is changes in behavior, right? So you don't want to just test at the beginning was there any bias, but you want to make sure that there's not any change over time.
Oh, so like yesterday, my AI for fraud was working, and today it's not. So something changed. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just lastly kind of wrap up. I always like to sort of think about the, I'm sure this is the people you work with, like the CEO, the, CTO of these massive global organizations who are sort of standing in the doorway. They know they want to jump into AI. Let's say they also know they have to be deliberate about hybrid and that they're probably not going to go all in on one thing or the other because of the multiple needs of their business. I'm going to challenge you, and I'll give you a minute to think about it. But in a non-technical fashion, I'm the CEO of global XYZ company. What are like 3 things I can achieve by jumping in here? And what are 3 things I got to worry about?
Great question. I think it's important to know that they're absolutely working at scale AI applications in production today. Everyone always kind of wonders, did anyone get there? Am I behind? And we're absolutely seeing enterprises be able to be very efficient in things around summarization and content generation and other things like that with the current generation of AI. So it is first possible to get good value. Second, it is very possible to construct an internal system and process where you can successfully get everyone on the same page. That too is happening. It's a challenge still in many places, but it is happening and it is possible and you can get through that. And I think lastly, it's possible to make decisions that help you avoid lock-in across the cloud landscape and the AI landscape. And the exciting thing about that is there's a lot of new technologies and we're very heavily investing in open source around AI, open source software capabilities, open source models, other things like that. And so it's possible to jump into AI and still remain in an open and transferable ecosystem across the hybrid cloud landscape. So I think those are kind of three really core messages to know. I think in terms of things to be concerned about and watch out for, I think number one, you want to make sure that you're partnering with a vendor that you trust and that is providing a lot of transparency, either through openness or through disclosure of what data that they're using or how their AI is going to be using your data. You want to understand those questions. You should be asking all of those questions. I think secondly, you want to be thinking about security. These applications can be kind of complicated. You may actually, unfortunately, because of your heterogeneity in your IT landscape, be pulling data from different places and things like that. And so security and having a robust security function and tooling and such around the space, I think is the third thing to be thinking through. And honestly, I think the trust and the security probably are the top two things. So I'll leave it at that. I won't take a hole and go for a third one that's less significant. I think those are really
to do three.
Yeah, it's all right. No, they say it's psychological. Actually, people remember three really well. So
maybe so. That sounds right. Well, Hillery, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thanks for being on BetterTech. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been fun.